Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me today. We are playing dress up once again. Yes, we are. Why? Because dressing up is fun. And just like dressing up, I really enjoy talking about stories that help paint the bigger picture. Now, today we're diving into Harry's security situation. Whenever we look at stories like this, we have to remember that a lot happens behind closed doors that never makes it into the headlines. I'm going to share my thoughts on how I think this whole security issue unfolded behind the scenes between Harry and Meghan, because, honestly, when you look at it from that perspective, it starts making a lot more sense. We have to consider different possibilities. I'm not saying any of this is absolute fact, but sometimes you have to think about the conversations that aren't printed in the newspapers. That's because some of these stories simply don't add up on their own. Every now and then, you've got to use that third eyeball. You've got to rely on your reasoning, your life experience, and common sense to connect the dots. And now, here we are again. Harry's security drama has resurfaced, and once more it's changing everything. That's exactly what I want to discuss today, along with what I personally think is going to happen regarding Harry and Meghan returning to the UK. So, let's get into it. But wait, hold on just one second. Stop everything. Didn't we already settle this? I covered this a few weeks ago, and from everything we were hearing, it seemed pretty clear Harry wasn't going to get the security he wanted. There had been all this back and forth, and looking back at the reporting, it really looked like the matter was finished. So this isn't exactly brand new information. What we weren't hearing, though, was that Harry was supposedly bringing Meghan and the children. We also weren't hearing that King Charles had reportedly offered them a royal residence. None of that was part of the conversation. Then, all of a sudden, stories started popping up saying Meghan was coming and the kids were coming too. Now, let me explain how I think that entire storyline about Meghan and the children returning to the UK actually came about, because I don't believe that was the plan all along. Even now, people are still saying, they're not coming, they're not coming. From the very beginning, I've always felt that Harry's explanation never made sense. He kept saying he couldn't bring his family to Britain because it wasn't safe. Come on now, we all know that explanation doesn't hold water. It's a bunch of nonsense. It just doesn't add up. This is a man who's traveled to Nigeria. He went to Colombia, then Jordan. I almost said Argentina, but no, it was Jordan. He's visiting countries that, in my opinion, present greater security concerns than the UK. Yet we're expected to believe Britain is somehow too dangerous. I don't buy it. Here's what I think really happened. I believe Meghan was telling Harry, I'm not returning to the UK, and neither are the children unless I receive the highest level of security, the same kind William and Catherine have. That's how I imagine those conversations going. I think she intentionally set the bar extremely high because, deep down, she never wanted to return to the UK. I've believed that for a long time, and I still do. Harry, meanwhile, was using that as his public explanation. I can't bring my family back because it isn't safe. It's too dangerous. Unless I receive the security I deserve, we're not coming. Personally, I think that's what motivated Harry to keep repeating that argument. Years pass. Harry loses the court case. Nothing changes. Meghan still isn't coming. It's almost like, well, they denied the security again, so no security means no Meghan. Meanwhile, life keeps moving. We see Meghan traveling to places like Paris on her own without making security the issue. That tells us something. We know security isn't really the problem. What I do believe is that Meghan knows exactly how to play these kinds of games with someone like Harry. She just does. And honestly, I've been that Meghan girl at one point in my own life, so I know exactly the kind of things that could be said in a situation like this. As more time passes, Harry's father is battling cancer. His children are getting older. They're missing out on experiences Harry probably imagined they would have. The homesickness becomes real. The consequences of the choices he's made start settling in. Eventually, I think Harry reached his limit. I imagine him saying, enough, I'm bringing the children, because I don't believe Meghan would ever have allowed Harry to take the kids to the UK without her. She would have continued saying, it's not safe, it's not safe, but I think Harry finally stood his ground and said, forget that. The children are coming. At the same time, Meghan is dealing with all the talk surrounding as ever. People questioning whether the brand is struggling, whether it's failed, whether it's really generating the success she hoped for. So she's sitting there thinking, well, maybe. She's probably thinking, well, if Harry is serious about bringing the kids back, maybe I could use a little bit of that royal fairy dust myself. So, in my opinion, that's when she decides she's willing to go. But let's be honest, I don't think she would have agreed unless there was something in it for her. So now she's on board, even though this whole security issue is still hanging over everything. Deep down, Harry likely knew he probably wasn't going to win the security battle. But at this stage, it had become about something much bigger than Meghan's demands. It was bigger than the entire security argument. Harry wants his children to spend time with their grandfather. And let's not forget the financial side of things. They're losing money. Whether people want to admit it or not, finances matter, and eventually they were going to have to return regardless of what happened with security. That's why I think all this renewed discussion about security started again. Then we hear the latest reports saying they still haven't received the protection Harry wanted. I've been saying that all along. Yet at the same time, stories started circulating that the family was still planning to come, but nothing official had really been confirmed, had it? Then suddenly we're hearing Harry and Meghan are coming, and people start saying, well, it must be true because Harry seems confident it's happening. I imagine Harry saying, I'm bringing my family. I still want the security, but I'm coming anyway. It's almost like he was calling everyone's bluff. Now, officially, it looks like the answer is still no. The latest reports once again suggest that Harry's request for additional security has been rejected. That's simply where things stand. And because of that, we're hearing fresh speculation that the children may not come after all. Personally, I think Meghan is having second thoughts. I think she's seeing the level of criticism waiting for her, and she's weighing whether it's worth it. Of course, we'll have to wait and see what actually happens regarding the children. Behind the scenes, I don't believe Harry and Meghan are doing particularly well as a couple. That's simply my opinion based on everything we've been watching unfold. Then there's this whole one-year countdown event for Invictus. Honestly, on its own, I don't think it's a strong enough reason to make such a significant trip to the UK. I also think they realize the visit could become a public relations disaster. When you step back and look at everything, there seems to be chaos surrounding almost every aspect of this story. The security issue, the reports about royal accommodation, the constant speculation. Everything involving Harry and Meghan feels unsettled right now. More importantly, if Harry still feels he can't comfortably bring his family back to Britain after all these years, then what does that mean for all those conversations about Project Thaw and the possibility of rebuilding relationships with the royal family? Maybe those plans were never really going to work. Perhaps everyone involved realizes it's simply not realistic, and this gives Harry an easier way to step back. Or could this eventually become the turning point where Harry decides enough is enough and begins moving in a different direction entirely? The story just keeps shifting. First, Harry insisted there was absolutely no way he could bring Meghan and the children to Britain. Then reports appeared suggesting that security arrangements had somehow been sorted out. After that, we started hearing that Archie and Lilibet could be visiting Britain for the first time in 4 years. Then came stories about King Charles finally seeing the children, along with reports that they might stay at a royal residence. There were even claims that Harry and Meghan had accepted an invitation from King Charles to stay at a royal property, at least for part of their planned visit between July 7th and July 11th. According to those reports, the children would be coming too, although there wouldn't be any public appearances because of the ongoing security concerns. Now, however, newer reports suggest the court ruling still limits Harry's protection. There was also speculation that Harry wanted to take the children to visit Princess Diana's grave, possibly as part of a Netflix project or another documentary they're reportedly working on. But now we're hearing, once again, that the security request has been denied, leaving Harry facing the possibility of making the trip alone. That brings us to the real question. At what point does security stop being a temporary obstacle and simply become Harry's new reality? After all, when Harry stepped away from his role as a working royal back in 2020, he also gave up the automatic taxpayer-funded police protection that came with that position. He challenged the decision in court. He appealed. He wrote letters. And ultimately, he lost. Throughout all of this, the British government has maintained the same position that any security provided will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. That's not necessarily punishment. It's simply the arrangement for someone who no longer carries out official royal duties. Meanwhile, reports have suggested that King Charles's offer for Harry and his family to stay at a royal residence believed by some to be Buckingham Palace remains available. There were also stories claiming the king would personally ensure their security, although those reports were later denied by the palace. There's just been so much back and forth with this whole situation. Personally, I think Meghan has had a hand in some of these stories making their way into the media. I think certain information is being floated out there to pressure the royal family to basically call their bluff and encourage certain outcomes by making public announcements before anything is actually settled. At this point, I believe the palace, or, as we like to say, the people in the gray suits know that even the build-up to Harry and Meghan coming has become a problem. The messaging is all over the place. None of the stories line up, and nothing is being rolled out the way the royal family normally handles things. We all know how their public relations machine works. It's organized, it's precise. It's like a train arriving exactly on schedule. Everything is carefully planned and coordinated. That's why all of these conflicting reports just don't feel like they're coming from the palace. So let's ask the real question. Is this actually about security? Because this is where the story starts getting really interesting. Harry has repeatedly said that security is the reason he can't bring his family back to Britain. And yes, anyone can understand wanting to keep your family safe, but we also live in the real world. Most people understand that when you leave a job, you don't continue receiving all of the benefits that came with it. But Harry has always seemed to struggle with hearing the word no. He keeps pushing because that's not something he's ever really been accustomed to. Deep down, I think Harry knows they would be safe in Britain. I really do. I believe the bigger issue is the pressure coming from Meghan. At some point, Harry has to ask himself a difficult question. Is Britain truly unsafe? Or is the real issue that my wife has made demands that I'm presenting as something completely different because I don't want the public to know just how difficult this situation has become behind closed doors? Personally, I think that's much closer to what's really happening. Or perhaps the truth is even simpler. The life Harry chose no longer comes with the privileges he once enjoyed. Walking away from the institution also meant walking away from many of the protections and benefits that automatically came with being a working royal. Maybe this latest setback is simply another reminder that once certain doors close, they don't automatically reopen. Harry often says he wants reconciliation. He says he misses Britain. He says he wants his children to understand their heritage. But heritage isn't only about palaces, traditions, and ceremonies. It's also about accepting reality. And the reality is that Harry isn't the same man he was back in 2019. Today, he's a private citizen who also happens to be a prince. Every time another request for enhanced security is turned down, it's another reminder that the life he remembers may not exist anymore. And honestly, that may be the saddest part of this entire situation. Not because Harry can't go home, but because home itself has changed. And maybe Harry has changed too. I also think he's beginning to realize something else, that his feelings about his marriage may have changed as well. This could be the moment where everything finally starts becoming clear for him. Because Meghan can't get from Harry what she once could. Now that things aren't working out in America the way they hoped, I think Harry's priorities have shifted. As much as all of this has been framed around security, I believe what Harry really wants now is a life where both he and his children can reconnect with a part of who he is and where he comes from. And perhaps he's beginning to see that, over time, many of the things he valued most have slowly disappeared from his life, and he wants his children to experience those things before it's too late. That's why I believe this entire situation is about much more than security. Of course, things could change again. They usually do. But I really think we're at a turning point when it comes to Harry and Meghan's relationship. And I believe the biggest clue will be whether those children come to Britain and whether Meghan comes with them or not. If Harry arrives with the children but without Meghan, or if nobody comes at all, I think that will reveal a great deal about what's really happening behind the scenes. Because in my opinion, this entire security battle has always been more about Harry and Meghan's relationship than it has ever been about security itself. All right, everybody. Otis. 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 I'll see all of you in my next video. Here we go.